Hello there everybody, and welcome back to another episode of An Ecologist Plays. My name is Will, and this is Ancestors, the Humankind Odyssey. Now, just to recap, last time we came in from that side, wandered along the stream a little bit, saw some places, but we have climbed this beach pillar over here, the big outcrop that we have on the coast here, and there's the ocean. So this is the last biome that we are going to encounter in this game, the final stages of the game. Now, as I glimpsed over here, you may have noticed the eggs lying over here. Now, these eggs belong to the Miocene Pelican, Pelagornis, which, as far as I know, means ocean bird. And they are a type of toothed or pseudo-toothed bird, a false-toothed bird. And we are probably going to encounter them at some point, and we're probably going to whack them with a stick at some point as well. Now, it is starting to get nighttime, so I am going to take a quick nap, and then we are going to explore this area in daytime. So I'll be back in a moment. And the other way to wake up. Just waking up, and one of the local Amphimacaridus decided this is a good time to come and just attack us. But thankfully we did survive. All three of us are still alive, none of us are injured, and we can just carry on our merry way over here. So, this is the beach. Now, this is going to be I think a less harsh environment. We'll find out in a moment. I don't think we suffer so much from the effects of heat stroke as we did in the desert, but we'll find out in a moment as we run along here. Now, there are two sides we can go to. We're first going to go here to the eastern side, there where the sun is rising, so we're heading in the direction of the sun, and then we are going to the west on the other side there afterwards, and we are going to just explore a little bit, make some new discoveries along the way here, and see what we can find. Now, there are some birds flying around here. Now, those are still the great ground crane that we had encountered earlier. Now, they would be around estuaries, but not really along the ocean, I think. But you never know, they may go down to the beach for a little bit of a holiday. But these great ground cranes that we have been observing in the game thus far are actually the national bird of Uganda, as we are just whacking another Amphimacaridus with a rock. Yeah, go away, you little evil little cat. There are actually quite a few of these guys gathering on the rocks here, so I like them. I haven't seen a lot of them in my life, but I have seen, I think twice or thrice I have seen them. Really want to see them again. But there's another weird bird that was just flying around there. Those are some of the toothed birds. Now, birds like these, at this point in time, didn't have true teeth. They had false teeth, or pseudo-teeth, as we would call it. And the reason they are false teeth is because they have what is known as Volkmann's organs, if I'm not mistaken, which is found in dense bones. They're not the characteristic of dense bones. Let's just quickly get rid of this black mamba. There we go. Now, I'm not a doctor, not that kind at all. I'm not a doctor yet, even, so I'm not quite sure what on earth a Volkmann's organ is, but I'm sure if you are a doctor, you'll be able to tell us what on earth it is. But it is found in certain hard bone in birds and reptiles and mammals, if I'm not mistaken, or at least in reptiles and mammals. And there's the ocean's archway. Okay, the ocean's arch. Quite a beautiful area. We are going for a little holiday on the beach here. But the little teeth, well, false teeth, the pseudo teeth of the Pelagornis pelicans and these gulls on the beach here are, as I said, they are not true teeth. So they're not structured like ours, and they contain those Volkmann's organs, which you'd find in hard bones. I quite like this area. It's nice. It's not as hot as it is in the desert. There's not a lot of fresh water, so there's salt water that we can discover along the beach here, and that is about it. Let's see. Okay, there's the other one coming along finally. Now, over here, however, we do have a new source of food. This would be some kind of mussel in the Mightless genus. Now, nowadays we do have quite a few Mightless mussels alive still. Not sure which one this would be, but it is in the Mightless genus. Now, we can't just go and eat it. We need to bash it open. So this is quite a laborious process, but if you bash it open, of course, then you can get to the juicy muscle inside. Now, there's a lot of evidence that a lot of hominids would have consumed these types of food, and lots of ancient humans would have consumed it as well. Especially in South Africa, along our coastline, there's lots of evidence of the humans actually consuming mussels. And I'm just making sure that there's a lot of it here for all three of us to actually eat it. So it's easiest for me to just constantly go and bash these things open and then just put it on a little pile there. Completely threw the wrong thing on the pile there. Put it on the pile, harvest some more, and just keep on bashing it open so that we can have a nice seafood breakfast over here. Now, the consumption of seafood, like mussels over here, and oysters and all kinds of seafood, most likely increased brain development in humans, here in Africa at least. So if we're looking at a lot of the archaeological sites, they're very often along the coast. Okay, so there's no more mussels here. Oh, there's one more. Now, in South Africa, a lot of the newer archaeological sites are actually close to the ocean. But there we go. So we've got a whole pile of mussels over here. I'm just going to tell my little fellow hominids to also eat it. And then let's have a quick little breakfast. Okay, so something bad has just happened. Unfortunately, I switched over to my one adult hominid. And what happened is that he was in hysteria because he's not used to that environment. And this is actually quite bad. So if you are not used to an environment, what happens is your dopamine gets very, very low. And eventually you go hysteric. Which means that you just head in a random direction, you start running around, and eventually you just end up at your home base without knowing how on earth you got there. And that is what just happened to us. So, we are no longer at the beach, everybody. We are back in the savannah, which is not ideal. So what I am going to do is get myself poisoned here by a berry, apparently. And I forgot I was running around as an adult, as an elder, not as an adult, so I didn't experience the effects of the unknown. Let me just poison myself even more here. Okay, let's please eat a berry that isn't green. One that is ripe, please. Thank you. Another one that is ripe. There we go, thank you. So what I'm going to do now is I am just going to take this one hominid on a bit of a journey, because apparently taking more than one just ends in kind of a disaster. So I will be back in a little bit after I have made my way back to the beach. So I'll see you guys now. Right, now we are getting closer to the beach. However, we do have a new little animal over here, which is the Cinereus vulture, I think it is. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce that. I've never seen this species. It's not something that occurs in South Africa. But yeah, there is a vulture, or actually three of them, congregating over here. It's quite weird that they're sitting on the ground though. Unless there's a carcass, they wouldn't really be on the ground. They would rather be up in the trees. But yeah, there we go, some vultures. So let's Hakuna Matata these little guys and just go, whee, chase them away. So quite broad wings, as you can see there, relatively naked heads. A few short feathers on their heads though, to help them when they are feeding on carcasses, so they don't actually get too much blood on their heads. Just a little bit more hygienic, but broad wings to really soar. They struggle a little bit to take off. They can't generally take off this easily. There's a snake as well. Let's just chase a snake wherever it may be. But very broad wings to help catch thermals, which would be the hot air rising, from these cliff faces and so. So it's quite possible that vultures like these would nest up on these cliff faces, and then around about this time in the morning, about 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the morning, they would start flying out by just kind of jumping off their cliff and catching the thermal, rising up into the air, soaring quite high, and then not falling asleep like our little hominid is doing now. and then spotting prey down below somewhere. And in this case, there is a massive carcass over here, and this carcass belongs to an elephant. And this is quite awesome. So this would be the Stegotetralophodon. So the massive four-tusked elephants that we saw earlier in the game, in the savannah. And here, this one obviously moved along this river and died. And you notice this massive hole in the front here. This would be why a lot of people believed Cyclops are real, or Cyclopes would be real. So the Cyclops exists because this was believed to be the skull of a Cyclops. But it's actually just the entranceway for the nasal passage for the trunk that would come, and I almost pointed at my screen here, but the trunk would come out from there and go down, and the nasal passage and all those things would be through there. And it's quite awesome. The eyes would be on the side, I believe, over there, and then the nasal passage over there. But yeah, if you just look at this kind of looks like a Cyclops skull. So, I totally believe why, I can understand why people believed that to have been the case. And of course, that little elephant, that elephant there didn't make the journey through because it most likely didn't find enough water in order to survive. Now, we also do have a hole to poke here. Let's quickly do that. And we have managed to get a snail. So this then being the African, or the giant African snail again, the land snail that we had encountered earlier in the game. Now, these guys, as I've mentioned before, can give you a form of, a form of meningitis, encephalomeningitis if I'm not mistaken. So it's not something you really want to eat raw, not something you may necessarily want to eat in the first place. But in any case, but at one point when we saw this, I did mention that they were eradicated, at least in Florida, in Australia, in America. So that once they were very invasive in Florida, but they had been eradicated from there. Unfortunately, shortly after I said that, a new invasion in Florida had actually occurred. So they again were present in Florida, I think from July of this year. So literally like the week or two after I mentioned that they were no longer in Florida, yeah, they arrived back in Florida. So that's actually quite sad. But yeah, hopefully it can now be contained. They're a bit in quarantine there with that. And, or they are hopefully getting rid of the giant, or African giant land snails. Right, so we are now ready to head over to the beach again. We had a look at the elephant skull there. We had a look at the vultures that were feeding around it. And we are just heading off to our pillar over there. And it's actually quite weird. I've been running around as an elder for a very, very long period of time. And actually from a little bit earlier, I already started, this little hominid over here already started experiencing fear of the unknown. So there was a massive area that we actually hadn't conquered our fear yet. So it's no wonder our poor little hominid was hysteric and ran away the moment I switched over to him. Now, I'll be back in a moment. Just going to continue running in that general direction, and I'll see you now. Well, everybody, we are finally back at the beach, and we are here ready to discover this oasis, which is one of only 2 oases on the beach. This one being on the eastern edge, so this is the Sand Garden Oasis, and then there's one on the western edge of the beach, and quite a long distance between them. So you've got to be prepared to make the journey in this relatively harsh environment. So fresh water, obviously very hard to come by when you are down by the ocean. There are lots and lots of salt water, but you really don't want to drink that. Now, we are going to quickly go down to the beach there, to the water, to just go and, drink the water there to say that we did, even though we shouldn't. And then we are going to just quickly come back and rehydrate ourselves. Of course, drinking ocean water is going to dehydrate you quite a bit. So you really, really shouldn't be doing that, but we are going to do it because we can. Not because we should, but because we can. And also it is a new thing to taste and go, what is this? What is this? I'm not sure whether I should be drinking this. Aquae salsa oriogo. Okay, interesting. And there we go. Immediately you kind of get poisoned by it, or food poisoning a little bit from it. Upset tummy, basically. And yeah, that is basically what would happen if you go and drink seawater. Especially nowadays with all this sewage and whatnot flowing into the ocean. You really, really shouldn't be drinking it. But in any case, we did. And yeah, we're just quickly going to drink some fresh water to make up for it. Now, of course, we had already seen the mussels that's along the ocean edge here, and that's one of the many food resources we have available to us here. So actually, the ocean area is not that bad an area to be. You can also hunt some otters here. You can hunt some. They're not amused. Okay, fine. Let me show you how amused you can be. Fine. Enhydriodon, put a little Enhydriodon the Kukay, the African giant otter. Okay, well, shame, yes. Are you now amused? Let's just quickly get another stick just to protect ourselves a little bit better as well. Okay, and of course now there is a source of food for us if we should deem it worthy to eat. Or if we decide to eat it. Now there is another food source here, which is lying on the beach. It's a type of algae known as kelp. I'm not sure what genus this kelp is in that they've put it, or what genus they've put this kelp in. Laminaria or Eclonia or what it is. Let's have a look. Laminarialis. Okay, Laminarialis, that's probably the order that Laminaria belongs to. Now, in South Africa, we have quite a few species of kelp as well, and in many areas around the world, you do have lots and lots of kelp species. Oh, interesting. So this protects us against the bubbly poison, I call it, the food poisoning. And drinking seawater gives you the bubbly poison, so you could, in theory, and in the game at least, don't try this at home or in real life, but in this game you could eat the kelp here to get a buff against drinking seawater. And let's just quickly see what happens if we then drink seawater. Because it should then reduce that buff. Hopefully it doesn't take it away in one swig. There we go. So it decreases that buff. You can drink seawater without any problems. And there we go. Now it's gone. So that's one way to survive along the beach here, even if you don't have access to the oases yet. Wonderful. But there is another food source. Where was it? It was up here. It was here by the otters. Running away. Good. Go away. And it's a little egg that we've got here. I think this is the gull egg. Have a look here. Kelp gull, they call it. Larus dominicanus. Yes, so Larus dominicanus is actually a modern bird, kelp gull. We have it here in South Africa as well. I think it's still called the kelp gull here in South Africa as well. It's not, however, these gulls that they've got depicted here. So these are toothed gulls. Not sure what species they would have been, but they are definitely not the kelp gulls. Kelp gulls don't have, well, false teeth or pseudo teeth, whereas these guys do have. Now, the massive birds that we have here in the game, we haven't seen one yet, but the Pelagornis, we have eaten the egg at the beginning of this game today, of this session. But the Pelagornis was probably one of the largest birds, well, definitely the largest seabirds that ever lived. Oh, this is another bird. I think this is a heron's nest, so we are getting... Oh, there we go. This is Pelagornis. And there he goes. The Miocene Pelican. Okay. I'm not sure why on earth it attacked us here, but that's good to know. We can be attacked by it. Let's just quickly go away from this rock. Grab another stick just in case we are attacked again. There was not even a warning there. Usually you hear the pelicans calling in the distance and then you go, oh, okay, maybe I should move away, but there was no warning there. So let's just quickly inspect. I think this is heron's eggs. Probably belongs to Ardea. Yeah, Ardea ovum. Ardea is a genus of heron. In South Africa we have Ardea melanocephala, which is the black-headed heron, for example. We are probably going to be chased by... we can chase away the otters. Yay, okay. Let's just grab another stick so that we are prepared. So I want to eat Pelagornis. So we now have 2 sticks in our hands so that we can survive 2 attacks and hopefully kill it in the process. But the Pelagornis was, as I said, one of the largest birds that lived, and they actually had a wingspan of about 6 meters, the larger ones, which is quite amazing. We're just going to run around here, maybe jump onto that rock, go stand up there, just so that we can be attacked by the Pelagornis, and hopefully we can, stab it in the process. There does seem to be a precious stone up here somewhere. Ah, there we go. I knew I heard it. So there it is. We don't need it. So we're just going to chuck it in the ocean. Fortunately, my game glitched there at that point, but there we go. It's chucked into the ocean now. Oh, Pelagornis, where are you? There we go. As I woke up, I did hear the Pelagornis calling, so they are here. They are upset. And here comes one. And we have killed it. So that's a new one that we have now officially killed. The Miocene Pelican. Marvelous. Unfortunately now I don't have anything to butcher it with because firstly I left my butchering rock, my assault chopper, I left that down on the beach. And secondly, I did chuck the precious stone somewhere into the ocean, which we now don't have access to. Let's just quickly get the... here's the precious stone, but salt chopper will be much quicker. Let's quick that. Let's quickly get that, and then we'll get over again. So, if you ever want to kill the Pelagornis, you just come up to these big rocks, and at some point you'll hear the pelican calling, the Pelagornis calling, and then you'll be able to get it. Get it in the process. So, we don't want the bone. The bones would be extremely lightweight. They've got the same bone for mammals and reptiles and birds and everything. Let's just chuck it in that direction. Plonk. Splash in the ocean. But, of course, to have a 6-meter wingspan and still be able to fly, you need very, very, very lightweight bones, which the Pelagornis had. Now, here we can actually see the pseudo-teeth. So, notice there, I'm going to hop onto it in a moment. You can have a better look there. The kind of protrusions there, it's kind of extensions of the bone of the beak, as far as I know, instead of actually being true separate teeth. See if we can get a little bit closer here. There we go, that could work. Now we can see a little bit better there. And you can see there that they've got larger ones and they've got smaller ones. And the Pelagornis is characterized by having not just one size tooth, but between the big teeth, they have their smaller teeth as well, as you can see there. So yeah, this is quite cool. This was probably one of the larger species. There are some smaller ones, which were about the size of today's largest flying birds, the albatrosses and the Andean condors and the marabou storks, for example, with wingspans of about 3 meters. But some of these some of the species in this group had a wingspan of just about 50 or 60 centimeters, so quite small actually. But these massive wings, like with the broad wings and the big wings of the vultures that were used to soar with the thermals, these wide wings allow them to easily glide over the ocean, using updrafts of wind blowing over the waves, actually to carry them probably quite large distances. And most likely would have nested in cliff faces like this, because many modern seabirds also nest along here, along these cliff faces, where it's safer from predators and you can easily jump off, especially if you're a little fledgling, you can jump off from there and use the thermals to actually, or the wind blowing from the ocean and hitting the rock face there and going up. Now that's an amazing way for your first flight to get airborne without any problems. So yeah, it's actually quite cool how the world works and how nature works. Nature is, as my wife and I always say, nature is amazing. And I quite like learning about all these little things like the Pelagornis as well. But I'm just going to finish my breakfast over here and then we're going to head out again. Head out to the furthest east we can go along the beach here and then start heading west. Okay, so we are heading out again. There's one more landmark, I believe, here to the east. And then we can actually start heading west again. Not sure whether we're going to do that today, but we'll see. Now we can see the Velvetia coming up again here in a moment. We are just going to have to conquer our fear here for again. Anything we can hear? Nothing we can hear. I know we can smell a few things because there are some Velvetias in the area. Some berries as well. There's Velvetia. More Velvetia. Here we go. Another little conquering of fears to take place. But those Velvetias there, I mentioned last time, but I never expanded on it. that they are kind of a link between angiosperms and gymnosperms, because they, like the cone-bearing plants, the gymnosperms, like pine trees and cedar trees and yellowwood trees and all these types of gymnosperms, produce cones. But unlike the other gymnosperms, they also produce nectar, which is kind of a characteristic of angiosperms or flowering plants. They also have these two leaves that they produce, and they have they're quite weird overall though. Now you can see we're eating the cones technically here, the female cones, and I'll put a photo up of what the male cones also look like. Female cones do look like this. They're quite large, much larger than the male cones. Male cones are much smaller. They produce pollen, and then the female cones here will also produce some nectar. I believe the males may also produce nectar, but it's quite weird in that they actually may have pollinators. Most gymnosperms, if not all gymnosperms, like cycads and pines and stuff like those, would be pollinated by wind, whereas this one will be pollinated by insects, things like wasps and perhaps bees and flies. And there's even a chance that the Velvetia bug, which is a type of bug that lives on the Velvetia plant, may also be to some extent responsible for pollinating them. Although that is kind of debated, it's unsure at the moment, because it may just be that they are drinking the sap of the Velvetia and not actually pollinating them. Where are we? There's one landmark there, and that's it for this area. So let's just head over in that direction and quickly go and discover it. Now the Velvetias, as I've mentioned, found only in a small area. I think it's a few 100-kilometer long strip between northern Namibia and southern Angola. And it is named after a botanist, I believe, Mr. Velvich, which discovered it. Well, not really discovered, I mean, it was known to the local people, but described it initially. Now, it's commonly just known as Velvetia. It doesn't really have much of a common name, although it is also called Tumbo, T-U-M-B-O. And that is the name that is given to it in this game as well. And the cones, especially the female cones, they can be eaten, like we just did. And it's eaten, usually cooked a little bit, but you can also apparently eat it raw. Now these then are the eroded cliffs, which would be most likely eroded by wind. As the wind blows across the canyon here, would erode it a little bit as well, as you can see here, leaving these pillars around as well. These pillars would really be a very good spot for seabirds to nest. And I know that during the cinematic there was a nest of some seabirds somewhere up there. But here on the coast of Pliocene, Africa, we are going to end today's session. So thank you very much again for joining me on this journey. Really hope you enjoyed it. Join me again next week when we head to the other side of the beach, see what we see along there, see what we can find along there, and then start heading back towards the savannah through the desert again. So please leave a like if you enjoyed the episode. Please subscribe if you haven't yet. It really helps the channel out to help the channel grow. Spread the word, share the video. Let's educate through entertainment. And until next time, everybody, stay safe. I will see you all soon.